My voice is the voice that guides you home safely each and every day.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
I am the voice of the safest and most efficient airspace in the world.
I have to be 100% of the time.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a professional air traffic controller.
Peter, thank you for letting us spend time with you in your office. Congratulations on assuming the chairmanship in the next Congress of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
Thanks, Todd. It's been a long time coming, but I'm ready and I've got plans on what to do with that job.
So you've been waiting for 32 years for this moment in time. You've clearly thought about what you want to do. Walk us through the first couple of months of the chairmanship.
Well, I proposed 3 bills early on to the Trump administration that were bipartisan. 2 of my Republican sponsors are in the Freedom Caucus, and the other one was a conservative. And they totaled about $560 billion of paid-for infrastructure investment, about half of what the president promised, or a third if you go back to last year's State of the Union. But real money, real investment, real infrastructure. There's 3 components. One is we collect a harbor maintenance tax, but Congress diverts part of the funds every year. And we have somewhere around a $10 billion balance, and every year we aren't spending the total income. I want to spend the annual income on harbor maintenance. We've got a huge deficit, and I want to spend down that trust fund in a reasonable period of time. So that would get us about $30 billion of needed investment in our nation's harbors. Second would be a passenger facility charge. I was the original Democratic author of PFC. I authored that bill because I live across the river in a town called Springfield, Oregon. The airport is in Eugene, Oregon. They were building a new airport, and they had no way to pay for it except general obligation bonds, property taxes. And I said, well, gee, this isn't exactly fair. You know, I use the airport more than most of the people who live in Eugene. I'm not going to pay a penny for it. And then Portland had expansion needs, and we have people coming from another state who don't pay any taxes in our state using that airport. And I said, you know, really, airports ought to have a way to fund and self-fund their improvements, you know, with a modest charge on passengers. So there's a lot of resistance. There had been a program. It had been abused by some cities and port districts where the money went to other than aviation purposes. So we put parameters on it and said, okay, it's got to benefit the traveling public directly. If you're going to assess this, you've got to get your program approved. We've had that program for almost 30 years now, 25, 27 years, and there have been no scandals. All the money has gone to help improve the passenger experience and security in the airports. We have tremendous unmet needs, and I'm going to make the case that it's time, after 18 years, to allow an increase in the passenger facility charge. And I'm gathering examples with which I can make the case of airports that are essentially gated out. Now, for whatever peculiar reason, the airlines say, well, gee, if you charge another $1 PFC, no one will ever fly again. I don't know how that equates to what they're doing with ancillary fees, you know, bag fees and that. I mean, really, they'll come get, you know, how's that work? So I did study economics in undergraduate and graduate school, and I know that that's a bunch of BS.
I want to come back to
okay, but I didn't finish.
Oh, I'm
number
sorry.
Part three.
Number
Part
3.
3. Yeah, no, the biggest part.
The big 3.
Service transportation, roads, bridges, highways, transit. The administration is sitting on, even the Republicans are frustrated with what the White House is doing with transit and new starts. We're going to do some oversight on that and get that unplugged. But we need more revenue. We got 140,000 bridges on the National Highway System need substantial repair or replacement. We get 40% of the National Highway System mileage where you have to rebuild the road, not just resurface it like Obama did. And we have a $100 billion backlog to bring transit up to a state of good repair, let alone offering people new transit options so they can get out of their cars, get out of the congestion. So I'm working with the Ways and Means Committee. That's one I can't I can't legislate the funds for, but I'm going to work closely with the Ways and Means Committee, and we're going to do a major package.
So, 2 weeks after the election, there's already speculation about who's running for president, jockeying for 2020, all of that. It seems like the infrastructure package is one of a very small handful of possible bipartisan efforts that the Congress can undertake successfully in this next Congress. Do you agree with that assessment, and how do you think you try and make that happen?
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I do have some pushback from some people saying, oh, you give Trump a victory. I said, no, Trump can't claim victory. They controlled everything, and they went backwards on transportation. We take over the House. We put forward a good proposal. There's going to be plenty of other things that we can have political differences with him on. But this is something the country needs. It should have been done back in Obama's first package. It wasn't. We've got to move forward on this. So I think it's possible. The head of congressional affairs for the White House, I think maybe with the finger in the wind before the election came by, I didn't even know they had a head of congressional affairs, and Shira Knight, and she worked for Bill Thomas on Ways and Means on transportation issues. And she gets them, and she assured me that the president really wants to do this.
So, as you might imagine, I'm particularly interested in the second leg of your stool,
right,
the PFC increase. As you noted, 1990, you were one of the original authors of it. It's been 10 years later, in 2000, there was a modest increase, but it's been 18 years since that's happened. In the last Congress, you referenced a bipartisan effort. You had a Republican co-sponsor to lift the cap entirely on the PFC. Right. Is that an approach that you'll take a look at, or do you have a different thought in mind, or is it still kind of jump ball on that?
Well, I've got to try and get the most prominent Republican I can to support the proposal, so I'll be a little flexible in terms of how we do it. I mean, whatever we do, whether it's without a cap or a modest increase over the existing cap, it has to be indexed. I mean, that's the biggest mistake we made with both the gas tax increase in '93 and the PFC. Had we indexed them for construction cost inflation, we wouldn't be in as deep a level of hurt as we are today.
A lot of people think that Congress wasn't willing to do that because it took them out of the equation. They didn't have the power then to increase it. But what you say makes a lot of sense in terms of
but it's just like, that's got to be done. I mean, it's got to be indexed. I mean, and whatever we do for, part of the package on revenues will probably have something to do with the gas tax. That's got to be indexed.
All right. And so hearings on an infrastructure package, or just going to write it and go?
Oh, no. I think we'll see probably 2 tracks of hearings, one in Ways and Means and one in my committee.
You mentioned Ways and Means. There's been a lot of talk recently about the possibility of the Ways and Means Committee creating a new subcommittee that would focus on infrastructure or focus on transportation issues. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's been proposed by my neighbor and friend, Earl Blumenauer. He served on transportation for a number of years, went over to Ways and Means. So he has a handle on both the authorizing side and on the funding side, understands the needs well. And, I'm supporting that idea. There's going to be, probably a major revisiting of the tax package and other things that will take up a lot of time on the committee, and I do not want infrastructure to get put off. I mean, we've got to get this done first 6 months of the year, so it's got to have real funding.
Yeah. You mentioned the word taxes a couple times. A thought came to mind. I've called, AAAE has called over the years for Congress to tax ancillary fees, bag fees. The kind of business model of the airlines has changed, and they've shifted a lot more focus over to bag fees. That represents a lot of revenue that isn't going into the trust fund. I know you don't have jurisdiction over taxes on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, But I've heard you talk a little bit about this ancillary fee issue in the past.
Well, again, I mean, I would make the comparison between what they say is absolutely inelastic demand, you know, which is, okay, we raise the PFC, no one's going to fly again, but we can raise bag fees and people thank us. Doesn't make much sense. You know, Ed Markey and some other senators proposed to regulate those fees. It didn't get into the FAA bill. But, you know, years ago, I remember we had a bunch of the CEOs in for, it was like a panel, it wasn't a hearing. But I said to them, you know, you got to be careful where you're going on ancillary fees, because I said, I can see the day when someone's going to charge $1 for the ticket and the rest of it's ancillary fees, and you don't pay the ticket tax, and then we can't fund the national airspace. So it is something that, you know, we need to be reviewing. We have asked for more comprehensive numbers than we have. We don't really even know what the total ancillary fees are. DOT only collects statistics on 2 of the many fees. So I think some of that will warrant a hearing and a discussion.
Mm-hmm. Back on the PFC for a second, you talked about some of the airports being gated out and sort of bonded out through a time into the future. Using PFCs for competition to aid communities in attracting more air service ends up being an important piece of that, and that's something you've talked about over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I would observe, I fly a lot, that one of my most frequent delay points is, oh, good news, we arrived early. Oh, bad news, there's no gates. And you're going to sit here for 25 or 30 minutes. Or even you arrive on time and, well, there's still a plane at the gate, and that's the only gate. Recently, I was talking to someone representing Spokane. They said they're the fastest growing mid-sized airport in the country. And they said basically that airlines want to bring in more flights, and they've had to tell them, no, we don't have capacity in the terminal, and we don't have the money to build out what we need. So I'm sure there are other examples like that. We're going to be trying to research them and find them and show that this is going to benefit the flying public. And ultimately, I think the airlines are short-sighted. It's going to increase the passenger flow. People, you know, I mean, there are people now who, for whatever reason, you know, on some, like, you know, they always have statistics on how far will you drive versus taking a commuter flight. And part of it has to do with the hassle of the airport and new designs for airports to deal with real throughput for security, better security, but faster throughput. You know, more pleasant experience in the airport, so you don't resent having to be there, you know, waiting for your plane. I think that you know, it's short-sighted to say that, you know, that their passengers don't want this. I think that's very short-sighted.
What can airports do, in your view, to help you help us help you? How can we help move this process forward?
Well, maybe airports that need a PFC increase to do necessary projects, maybe they should be advertising that to everybody who passes through that airport. Concerned today about, you know, not enough space, concerned about what time it took you to get through security. We have plans to fix that, but we need help. Lobby Congress.
Got it. I've got time for just one last question for you. Aviation security taxes has been another issue over the years. A deal was cut years ago to divert some of those revenues from their intended purposes to just go to the general fund. Is that something that you and the incoming chair of the Homeland Security Committee are going to take a look at? Yeah,
I bitterly oppose the diversion of those funds. I mean, first off, we could use them to more quickly deploy better baggage screening for carry-on bags, which would, again, increase security and throughput. We could put those out faster if we weren't diverting that money. If you're going to charge it, spend it on real security. Don't divert it somewhere else. And that's made me very angry. And that's part of why I have supported what the airlines want, which is this full fair disclosure to say that they can, because right now we're kind of hiding that from people, that you're paying this extra security fee. By the way, it doesn't go to security. people really wouldn't like that. But I got to also say, I didn't find the degree of outspoken opposition from the airlines on that diversion of funds that I do to the passenger facility charge proposal, which puzzles me.
A lack of intellectual consistency, perhaps.
Well, I think they thought that the administration wanted it, and they had things they wanted. At that point, they wanted to privatize the airspace, so they went along with it without too much fuss. I mean, we were able to eliminate it starting in 2027. I'd like to move that up to 2019.
Peter, that's all the time we have this time around. Thank you very much. Congratulations on the soon ascension to the chairmanship.
Yeah, thank you. Great.